Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the 33rd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Jason Spence and Cris W. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, Jason?
Oh, where do I start? Well, I've been in recovery for a while. Oh, jeez. I don't know why that's a tough question. I lived in Kelowna for about 6 years. I came up here to go to a treatment center, and consequently, I have 6 years sober. So I guess this time the geographical change worked.
And what treatment center did you happen to attend?
I went to Options in 2018.
I smell a theme in this meeting. Options alumni rocks.
Hey.
Yeah.
My sober date is November 24th, 2018.
Okay, nice. So you just had your 6 years. That's great.
Yeah.
I was at your 5 years while I was in Options. I remember it.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah. So what would you say the pivotal moment for you was when the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart? When did it change from, oh shit, I got to do this, to, oh shit, I got to do this?
That's a good question. Well, it kind of, because I went to Options in 2018, and I'd say the first time I was introduced to recovery was around 2007. And, and I was in and out for a while. And I think it was when I relapsed in about 2014. And it lasted quite some time, and it just got to the point where I came to the realization that I'm going to die if I don't get it together right. And I had been in recovery before, and I found it's the only thing that worked for me, and I know that it works. And the evidence of that for me was the other people that were in recovery that had good lives, right? So it was really just a choice. I had to surrender to recovery, so to speak. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take all the suggestions, and and I'm just going to do it straight up, because it's either have a terrible life or have a good life.
And at that point, like, was it an overdose that sent you into the treatment center, or was it just how did that turning point happen of you getting there?
Well, just my life was in a shambles, and
did a family member direct you there, or?
Yeah, my sister went there actually, a couple of years before that, so I knew about it, and I knew about Kelowna. And I had never lived in Kelowna or been around Kelowna, so I had never gotten loaded here or used here or anything, and it just sounded like a good idea to get out of Vancouver.
Okay.
So I came here, and I was planning on going back to Vancouver, but very quickly, I'd say within about a month, I had met a lot of people, started feeling pretty good about myself, or reasonably good anyway. I like to say, by the time I was here for a month, I had low self-esteem, or actually I was told that I might suffer from low self-esteem. But I thought that was a great thing, because a few weeks before that, I had zero self-esteem. So
exactly,
it seemed like progress to me. Right?
Anything up was up from rock bottom.
Yeah. And I started to meet people, and they brought us to meetings and this and that, and I had the opportunity to chair a meeting when I was probably about 6 weeks sober, right?
Wow.
And I did, and I just took that on, and I did that meeting for a few months. I chaired every meeting for months, and it was a great way to get to know who everybody was, and for everybody to know who I am, right?
Absolutely. I think that
Very
being
quickly
involved,
become a part of it.
if you don't get involved in service, you
Yeah,
don't build your community,
yeah,
because everybody I knew before the program is still out there doing what I was doing before then.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
how about you, Chris? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am coming up to 7 months clean now myself.
Yay!
Yeah, so next week will be my 7 month clean date on that. Originally from Australia, so I've been in Canada, especially in the Okanagan, for 10 years. Uh, so similar story. I seek treatment at the start of probably start of summer. So June June 17th, I went into options on that side, and I did a 45-day program in there on that. So yeah, my story started off with is I knew that I funny thing, I knew that I was an addict, but I didn't actually grasp how bad the addiction was, right? I knew that I needed help. And it wasn't until probably my second week in treatment where I realized pretty much step one on how powerless I was over my addiction. For one, it started with a simple work email that I read, and for some reason that sparked a lot of anxiety in me. And I remember saying to one of the support workers in there, I think I'm ready to bounce, I don't want to be in here. And she sat me down on the couch downstairs and she said, Chris, can you see how powerless you are over your addiction? Over the simple email that you read has literally controlled everything that you perceive yourself to be. And the only thing you want to do now is to just bounce and use. So yeah, I was similar to Jason's story. I came to the fellowship, funny enough, 6 7 years ago. It was in 2019, I think it was around about that time. Um, I met a guy that I work with, and I heard about his story and I saw where he was in his life, and I thought there is something different about you, and I don't know what it is, but how did you do it? And then he said to me, "Come with me on a Friday night." And I honestly thought I was going out to have a few drinks with him and see what was going on. And he was like, "Follow me in your vehicle." And I said, "Okay, we're taking
He
separate
locks the
vehicles."
door.
Yeah. And then he literally, we pull up outside of the Kalano Club. And I'm like, "Oh, what's this?" And he said, "I'm taking you to your first NA meeting." Right. I said, "Okay, sweet." So I went in with him with an open mind. And he said, "You're going to hear a lot of stuff, but I think your main lesson today is just to be open minded and willing to hear the message." And he did. And I thank that guy because I was in there for like, I think, 30 days, 60 days. And then I went out. And then I just found it really hard to come back until this year. So, oh, not this year, sorry, last year. So, yeah,
Yeah, we're officially on the first full
yeah,
calendar year for
yeah.
you in your sobriety. I just finished my first calendar year, and so what was the exact pivotal point where that recovery fire took off in your heart? Because I remember seeing you this summer,
Yeah.
and I remember hearing a couple shares, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this boy's on fire.
For me, it was really that a long time in my life, like I wanted to belong. I wanted to feel like I was accepted, but I didn't. But I always thought I was alone because a lot of the stuff I felt like I just did not belong. And I think that seed was planted that first Friday night. I went to my first ever meeting where I sat there and realized that the people that I was sharing my parts of my journey through recovery actually got me. And it was like the vulnerability I heard in the rooms, right? But it was something more so, like Jason said, I saw something in them rooms where I was like, these people have something that I want. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't beg, borrow, or steal it, right? It was one of them things I had to work for it. And funny enough, it was Adam. He said, just surrender to the program. And then that's what happened. I think for me, my higher power showed me that a lot of the people I met 6 years ago, on that Friday night meeting, were part of my, like, I'm guessing you'd say, the foundation of where I needed to start my recovery properly. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks both of you guys for sharing part of your story. I like to start off the podcast with that because I like for every newcomer who might be listening to one of these, I want them to see that we all kind of came from the same pain, but things all took a different point for it to catch for us. Like everybody was introduced to the program at a different point, and when that fire took, it does, just because it's not taking the first time you're seeing it doesn't mean that it's not going to be there waiting when you're ready to end the pain. And so today our topic is denial and hidden reservations. Jason, would you like to say what that means to you, and why you were happy to come and talk about that here today?
Um, okay, where should I start about denial?
Wherever you feel like it.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been in denial. Anyway,
Did you just go there right now? Isn't that why we picked the topic?
yes, exactly. We were kind of joking about that before. Well, it's hard to think of something for me right now because it's been so long that I've been in like such deep denial. Um, I guess I could go back to step one, right?
Mm.
Step one is
It's really the one we got to get perfect, right?
that we are powerless and our lives became unmanageable, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've always known that I've been powerless over my
Hmm.
addiction. Like right out the gate, right?
There wasn't a period where you were fighting that with, like,
Mm.
I'm going to try to stop tomorrow. I'm not going to use today. You never said that to yourself and failed inside the day?
Not for a long time, and I
Okay.
think this is a good example of that. And like the first time I ever got loaded, I was 13. There's
Mm.
nothing really unique about that. And me and myself and a couple of my little friends, we got into my parents' liquor cabinet, and I drank with them a bit, and then they took off, and I just kept drinking all of their booze, right?
Mm.
And then I blacked out and ended up in some neighbor's backyard, and the police brought me home.
Wow.
And everybody was just horrified, and my parents, and it was like, it
Precious
was
Jason.
awful. And then
Yeah.
the next morning when I woke up, and I was grounded. They took away my Iron Maiden tickets. Like this goes back to the 80s, right? And the
Yeah.
only thing I could think is next week, next time, I'm gonna
Mm.
do this right.
Yeah.
And not get caught.
Yeah. And so I spent the next 25 years trying to get it right. But I knew I was powerless, right? I knew there was something wrong with me, and there's some kind of addiction. But then there's two parts to step one, and the second part is, like, okay, admit you're powerless. Yeah, sure. Whatever. That's kind of a given. I was aware of that when I was quite young. But is my life unmanageable?
Yes.
I don't know, man. Like, cause I got really, really good. I was an expert at managing the unmanageable, and just accepting, the inevitable doom and chaos that comes with my life,
Mm.
right? And I see guys come into the program and they're 23 years old, right? And I used to think, oh my God, like that is so young. What are you doing here? Sort of thing. But then I think, like, by the time I was 23, I've been going hard for a decade. Right?
Mm.
It doesn't matter when you come in or when you decide it's enough, right? Like my life had to get really bad. Like I was absent from my family. I always felt really terrible about myself. I never really had any good relationships, never had kids, never really had a job, never did anything, right? And I just thought that's how it was.
Mm.
This is how life is. And then when I got into, I was kind of forced into recovery in around 2007, right? But I had no idea that AA or NA or anything like that exists. I had no idea
Mm.
what recovery. I had no clue. Um, I don't know, like, how much longer I should keep talking here, because it's kind of an endless story. and I never really had any success up until that part of my life. And when I came in 2007, things got really good really quick.
Mm.
And then it didn't take too long until I equated my own success with how much money I had, right?
Mm.
Or how hot my girlfriend was,
Mm.
this and that, or what kind of car I was driving, or how many motorcycles I had, right? And that became my identity, and
Mm.
even though I wasn't using, it was just a life of hedonism, and I did not feel good about myself. I
So
only
at that point, though, just to
recovery
clarify,
was
you weren't doing any step work.
I
Like
did
that.
a step work, but one thing I didn't buy into was the higher power stuff, right?
Okay.
I just took what I thought I needed from it, right? Which wasn't the way to go, and I ended up relapsing, of course. Maybe
Hmm.
I only stayed in the program for maybe like a year or two, and then it was like, okay, you know, I'll take it from here, right? And then it was
Yeah.
another few years to get loaded. And then when I
Yeah.
got loaded, it was just horrific, right?
Mm.
And it went on for years, and I lost everything that I had built up. And so the only thing I learned from my relapse was to just stay in it. Like I was ready um, for recovery before I even got sober, right? Or
Mm.
clean.
I
And
saw you at your 5-year cake,
yeah,
and you just spoke of this, not wholeheartedly doing the program, of this relapse and kind of like leaving the program and white knuckling till your relapse.
Mm.
Now, can you just say for everybody out there, like when I saw you at your 5-year cake, you looked like somebody who was happy their life had changed for the better.
oh yeah,
Mm.
And
yeah.
so that wasn't occurring before you embraced the program, just for clarity.
No, no, no.
Okay.
So, like I do a lot of things for myself lately, or like these days.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to maintain a connection with people and this and that. And I would say like the first year, that's what it was all about. Just like building a foundation and getting to know myself. And as I got to know myself and discover things about myself, um, I would embrace certain things like music and art
Mm.
and and like I did buy into the higher power, and I
Mhm.
did pray and meditate, and it's kind of hard to explain, but because I have a hard time kind of fathoming it myself, right? But I know that it works, and it works for me, and I feel pretty good about myself today. I can actually
Mhm.
say that I love myself.
Yeah. Uh,
Which I just, if I said that, and it took some time.
Mm.
Like
mhm.
it took about 2 or 3 years just to be able to forgive myself, right?
Well,
Mm.
you spend how many years beating yourself down, right? It takes a little while to rebuild that back up.
Yeah, a long time, and it still comes up, and defects come up, and it's just a work in progress. But that's one thing that I find comforting about recovery is that there's no end game, there's no ultimate
Mm.
goal.
Mm.
No, I liken
Right?
it to an
It's like
upside down
ongoing.
pyramid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like the little bit I know shows me this much more I need to know, and then like that, and it's
Mm.
just like it's like the never ending quest for self actualization.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's all kinds of ways to do that, right?
Yeah, and everybody's own private, whatever somebody feels like they want to or need to work on,
Yeah.
Uh, and so, Chris,
Yeah.
what do you think about the topic of denial and hidden reservations, and what would that mean to you, or or how, like,
Yeah,
what
so
did it make
I
you
I
feel?
was in denial for a long time. I think for me, I was the other side of the coin. I knew that I knew I was a functioning addict for a long time because I still had a career, I still had a place, I still had the materialistic things, right? Because from a young age too, I was in that industry or even in that sort of mentorship of like success, 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 and this is what you need to be successful about. And a lot of the people I looked up to would always show me the right, like their right way of getting to what they needed in life to look like they were happy on the outside. So one of my biggest things I did was when I left Australia, I left my career back home. And same thing too, I started drinking at a young age and to fit in with a lot of the guys and the girls on that because I felt like I was different. And then for probably a short period of time, I threw myself in my career and I got to what I thought was successful in life, but for some reason I was still feeling emotionally and spiritually empty. So I came to Canada and thinking that like leaving a place, that geographical move would help. And it did for a little bit, but then that's when the addiction for me started getting worse. So the more I fell into addiction for myself, the more I had to have the status quo of that, and the more the denial came in. And I think it fueled a lot of the false sense of pride, but that addiction of ego, where it's like, this is what I need to look like I'm functioning well, right? And then I don't know, from a young age, same thing too. I knew about AA, but I didn't know about NA. And AA was more like you're homeless on the street, no job, always drunk. So I thought I would never get to that level or that stage in my life, right? They didn't talk about how broken you were from the inside. It was about the physical aspect of what society saw it as. So that was my turning point for me when last year, like all three different worlds collided into one, and I could not manage all three worlds, right? And it came to the point where I was like, okay, you know, yeah, I am an addict, but I'm not that addict yet. And that's when I think for me it was just like my higher power was like bang, And same thing too, like Jason said, like for me, it was the reservation of a higher power. I grew up in a really religious family on my mum's side. She was Roman Catholic, and it was very like from a young age. I remember the young age where I went through the whole church system of being, christened, and then after being christened, first Eucharist, first community, and all that sort of stuff. But deep down, it was like the fear of God in me. Like, so, that was a big part for me. So when I came into the rooms, and every time I saw the word God or higher power or spiritual thing, I would skip it or I'd ignore it, right? And like Jason said, I did the same thing. I'd pick out bits here and there. I would white knuckle it for a couple of, months, and then suddenly I'd be back to square one again. But my mask of like, I'm doing well. I've got this, and this. I'm still functioning fine. But like at home by myself, I was just having that turmoil inside me. That was the big part, right? So yeah.
Awesome, man. I just want to say again, I'm really grateful that you guys wanted to come on today. I feel like there's a nice chemistry between the
Yeah.
three of us, and I'm happy to be rolling into this. My friend Andrew, who I do a lot of these podcasts with, he likes the acronym "Don't even know I'm lying" for denial.
Yes.
And I like that one, except that it drives me crazy that it's a K. I'm not an N. But you know, um, quite similar. Quite similar to you, Chris. I had no idea of the real definition of an addict.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't pushing a cart, right?
Mm.
I wasn't
Yep.
living under a bridge. I still
Yep.
had a house. I had a
Yep.
family that had food, you know,
Yes.
and yet there was just times where I was powerless, and
Mm.
I was like faking my non-powerlessness,
Yep.
faking it well enough, like I always say that, you can be out of control and crazy in this
Mm.
society as long as you're not killing someone and you're paying your bills. Like you can
Yes.
fake your way through
Yes.
this society in an
Yes.
incredible fashion. And, unfortunately, there's enough employers that you could chew through them all, like,
Exactly.
and but, denial of my addiction was about a 17-year thing for me. I had 37 years that I was, in my addiction. And the first 20 I was just great with. Like I was like, this is fine. I'm like, this is the, like my sponsor breaks it up into 5 sections. The all good, the all good with hiccups, the mostly hiccups with some good, the only hiccups, and then the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And for that first 20 years, I thought it was good. I was good. And then it was like, it was that even like the last 17 where I started acknowledging hiccups, I was like, oh, I guess that was real because you're telling me over and over that I've done that, but I wouldn't have a memory of it. And, so, and then, it was just like white knuckling periods full of resentment. And, and, I always had, even before the program, but it was like in those white knuckling periods, I had reservations.
Yep.
Like, oh, there's a wedding. Well, then I'm gonna definitely be drinking or doing drugs at the wedding. Or oh, we're going on vacation. I'm definitely doing it then. There's a work conference. I'm doing it then. And if anybody I love dies or anybody you love dies, I'm definitely partying at the funeral.
Yeah.
Like, and that was it. And I think. Fortunately for me, my heart stopping and getting skidded to a dirty, dirty stop scared the shit out of me enough that I really came in willing to get rid of any reservations and do whatever they asked,
Yeah.
Like I feel so lucky that I ended up at options, like I have a lot of friends in different meetings and that, and I don't think that all treatment centers are created equal. I think that what they've created there, there's some kind of little magic inside that organization that I feel so lucky to have gone there, because I felt like, step work inside a treatment center is really kind of like training wheels.
Yeah.
And then doing a set of steps outside is like really riding your bike down a hill and learning to brake and wipe out.
Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
Like because inside, man, I thought I had actualized so much. I was like the golden being. Here we go. And then I walked out the door and had an argument with my wife 3 hours later. and I was like, where did this amazing being go? And I was like so heartbroken, but I didn't give up at that point. Okay, Jay.
I remember doing step work at auctions. We'd be downstairs and they have the tables and everything. And that was in the afternoons, and it was something that I really enjoyed it. And it was and when I came in, I was done. So I was going to do everything like extra, just overdo everything. And I remember doing the reservations.
Wow.
Right. And it just the most outrageous, outlandish, politically incorrect, like pages and pages of just insane things, right? Because my life is pretty insane up into that point.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think they thought I was nuts, right? But
well, we are getting restored to sanity.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Because I never ever want to get loaded again, ever. Right? Just
no, I'm doing anything to keep this recovery, man.
And and everybody that I know in 2018 that was doing what I was doing, they're dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a life or death situation.
But I kind of and I never want to go back to treatment again.
No.
You know what? I want to take a vacation there and just do some group and step. I do. I would like to go for like a 2-week vacation, find a treatment center like in the Caribbean and just go down and do some steps, and it would be amazing. Or like in Thailand, go to like treatment in the Philippines. Like it would be great. So Jay, you said you had some questions. Would you like to ask Cris the question and then we'll all proceed to answer it?
Sure, whenever it works.
Yeah.
I came up with these with a little bit of help actually from my mom.
Oh wow!
Because I told my mom I was doing this, and I asked her like what kind of questions, like not being in recovery, like what would interest you. So anyway, we got together, and it's a bit of a different. It has a theme, and it's just about like I think like supporting someone in recovery is crucial in that.
Mm.
And here's a few questions. So the first one is, what has been the most challenging part of your recovery journey so far?
Ooh. So for me, I think it was, I can only put it into terms where I went to treatment and the treatment center itself was like a safety bubble, right? Looking back now, it was such a big safety bubble where, the method to their madness makes a lot of sense when you live the world, live that recovery world. Like for me, um, the biggest struggle when I came out of treatment was playing catch up or slow down. Knowing that I thought I put a pause on my life to fix myself, but the real world was still revolving, right? So coming out, I thought to myself, okay, like I've done this, I've done that. Having that chip on the shoulder of like what what recovery is like, but then dealing with like life on life's terms was like catch up or slow down. That was like the biggest thing for me. I found um,
What do you
they
mean by the catch up or slow down?
so it's more so like catching up with what you thought you put on hold in life. So like with work,
Yeah.
bills, relationships, right? Friendships, society on that. So, you know, they say you gotta find that middle part on it. Like I was fortunate enough to take more time off work to like really cement my recovery, but still having to deal with, okay, I've got to pay the bills still. Like I have to learn how to keep what I learned in treatment going on the outside world. Like going to the meetings, like 90 meetings in 90 days helped a lot, right?
Mhm.
On that side. My biggest issue that I had, or the biggest trouble I had, was a lot of my active addiction happened in Kelowna, where there was a lot of things that I did where I was powerless at people, places, and things. As the book says, I was like really powerless over that. So like having so much wreckage in this small town or in the city, I would put it right, but then having to recover in Kelowna has been like that flip of a coin where a lot of people like Jason's story was he did that geographical change to do recovery in a different city that he actually was in active addiction with, right?
Mhm.
Where for me, like I had a career that I had to answer to. I had people to answer to in a sense, right? What I thought anyway, my expectations at the time. I had like I had to still keep up this thing where I'm like, okay, I'm out of treatment and I'm meant to be this productive member of society, right? But it was hard because in options we only went out for meetings and for the occasional walk. We weren't really interacting with society or with people, right? And then you think you have it, and then you like the first instant. I remember going out after I graduated. I caught up with a friend that also did treatment at options, that he graduated like a month prior to me graduating, and I'm sitting downtown in the summertime like having lunch with him, and it was like a sensory overload, hearing cars, like the colors, the smells, the people walking past. I was like, whoa, like this is a lot, right? But again, too, being abstinence from drugs and alcohol sort of, it brought back senses that I was like, okay, this is what it feels like to be a brand new baby coming into this world, slowly walking again. So yeah,
Awesome,
Awesome.
Chris.
yeah.
Okay, could you repeat your question,
Yeah.
Jason? I get all
What?
caught up in the answer, and
Yeah, that
like
was awesome.
it's just how my
What?
brain works. You could even
Yeah,
repeat it for yourself too, when it's your
yeah,
turn.
I forgot what it was. Non. Okay, what has been the most challenging part of your recovery journey so far?
So I just had kind of a minute to try and scan my brain while Chris was talking. And I'm really torn between two things. Like I would say my greatest challenge of acceptance
Mm,
is dealing with the wreckage of my past and my financial situation.
mm,
But my biggest challenge in my heart is learning to cope with my shortcomings and resentments and give a better person to my family and
mm,
friends. Like I I can't magically recreate a real estate market. So I'm really powerless over that situation, and things are slow in this area in the winter. And so it really doesn't matter how much or how little I do, there's only so much potential for results.
Yeah.
And but with myself and my defects and my shortcomings, you know, like I said, I got in an argument with my wife 3 hours after coming out. I felt like I've gotten nowhere except that old Milan would have used that as an excuse to go use. I would
Mm.
not have considered my part in it. I wouldn't have even seen it as my defect. I would have blamed it all on her. Like the step 4 just taught me how delusional I was. Like I swear I thought I was gonna have a lineup. They'd be like, okay, line up over there on the left. All these people who were gonna come and apologize to Milan. And that just
Yeah.
was like that's how deluded I was that I
Mm.
thought everything was everybody else's fault. And that shift to taking ownership of the problems in my life and it being part of my acceptance, and also what I'm delivering as a person is
Mm.
obviously going to have an impact on how people treat me.
Yeah.
So I would say that that really is the biggest one. But at that mixed with kind of financial insecurity, like those two, like it just depends what day and how much like caffeine I've had for the response.
Yeah.
Like, well, I find that serenity escapes me with too much caffeine or not enough sleep. And you, Jason?
Awesome. Thanks, Milan. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about any answers to these questions until yeah. But anyway, yeah, I kind of have to scan back because there hasn't really been anything that difficult in the last few years, right?
Mm.
Well, that's a
Um,
good sign, right?
yeah, that
Yeah.
is a good sign. Nothing that I can't handle anyway, right?
Yeah,
The last few
yeah.
years has been all about emotional regulation. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's
That's a
really
good one.
it.
But
Yeah.
describe
And
that. I mean,
great.
that's something in itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would say, like initially, I had run myself into debt and this and that, right? Like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But fortunately, I had an asset, so I did the right thing, and I was left with some money, right? It, I paid off all my $300,000 in one day and paid everything off.
Mm.
Oh,
And I'm just thinking about the future, and like some creditors and credit card companies, they wanted to consolidate, like a $20,000 credit card debt. Oh, we'll just take three and we'll be done. They're like, no, you're getting the 20 because I have to think
Mm.
about my future, right?
Yeah.
And so and I wanted to restart an existing business up here. I was probably about 6 months sober. And so I bought the truck and the trailer, and I got a bunch of money into that, and that's starting to go along pretty good. This is in 2019 before the world went to shit,
Mm.
and everything is going along pretty well. And then my past starts catching up with me, right? Like I thought I had gotten away with an impaired charge, and that
Mm.
came out of nowhere, and they were going to get me on it. They were not going to let this go. They don't give a shit if I've been sober, and this and that. This is the reality, right?
Uh,
And and I had some tools and I had some support and I had some people around me. Um, so I didn't like give up on myself and just throw in the towel. Oh, it's not worth it anyway. The world's out to get me, right? Like a
yeah.
big part of my initial recovery was about taking responsibility for everything, for all my actions. Nothing ever happened to me, right? Nobody did anything to me. Like all this stuff was of my own doing, right? So I put it off as long as possible. I tried to get out of it, but it just wasn't happening. They were not going to let it go, right? And
Mm.
not having a driver's license was really going to affect this business,
Wow.
right? And it's like, holy shit, because I don't have a ton of money left, and so I have to start, get back and start making money so I can live. And not exactly the lifestyle that I had placed so much important on a decade before, because recovery comes first. I like having cool stuff, but
Mm.
but my mental health, let's call it, comes first. My recovery comes first, and that's how it's always going to be. But anyway, so I gave, I went to court and they took the license. This is about a week before COVID, right?
Wow.
And I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. And all of a sudden the world shuts down, right? And I'm like, holy shit, and okay, now what's gonna happen, right? Because there's no work anyway. Because I'm a contractor, like the government would start giving me some money, and I lived in this cool house up in Lake Country, and like, okay, what am I gonna do here? We're kind of locked down, and that's when I embraced art. I did
Mm.
some things before that, and I started painting. Like I
Wow.
painted for like 10 months straight. I
Nice.
sold some. I had a few pieces in galleries and this and that, and it was just crazy. It was just,
That's cool.
Yeah.
and I had, you don't really hear people talk about it too much, but I had Hep C that I got like maybe about 20 years before. And that's something that has been on my mind forever. And I felt like a dirty piece of shit because I had this, and it's not something that I was willing to talk about or look at and deal with. But I had been, I kept myself informed of what treatments might be out there. So I took care of that, like took some pills for a couple months and it was
Yeah.
gone. Now I don't have it. Right.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
So
I
in my
didn't know you
mind,
could get rid of it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's gone forever, and it was
Nice.
easy. And I bought myself another 30 years. So
Nice.
and I could do the responsible drivers thing. Online.
Yeah.
All the meetings were online. I could have food delivered. Like COVID was the best thing that could have happened to me, right?
Mm.
And I bet, like. It's kind of funny. I remember doing the responsible drivers. It's kind of like a Zoom setup, right? Or Microsoft Teams. It's like this, and there are about 9 people doing it, and there's a couple people that were getting drunk as these meetings were going on, right? Like, holy shit, I can't believe this. And so I got through that. It's just more of taking responsibility, right? And really hard to do that. And it was a difficult time. Not for very long. It was difficult because I had the tools not to like not to give up, right? And I made like lemonade from lemons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still do art today. I've been taking art courses downtown in the gallery for the last 3
Nice.
years. I know everybody there. I'm a member. I'm part of it.
Uh,
And that's an environment where people aren't like using drugs and getting fucked up
mm.
and this and that, right? Like there's another group of healthy people that I know, right?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of artists. And like I go
That's
to
awesome.
yoga all the time.
Yeah.
I go to the gym and this and that. So all of these challenges that I had to overcome led to good things, great things, right? Like things that I still embrace today. And I'm all about change. Anyway,
Yeah.
if you get me going, I'll ramble. So I better
I
stop.
love it.
Right?
Okay, do you got a question for me, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm rambling out of gratitude.
I think for me, one of the questions I had was like,
Right.
during your recovery, being out of treatment, and you've hit your year, right? Like you were saying, you've done 1 year already. At what point did you have to like truly resurrender? Was there a point in your recovery where you thought, I've got this, but there was at one point you had to say, you know what, I don't have this. I need to resurrender.
Well, okay, so we were kind of talking
Yeah.
about this before even this
Yeah.
podcast was conceived. They call it suggestions, right?
Yes.
We've all heard the
Yeah.
age-old term suggestion. And, part of me hates that it's called a suggestion because then people start to pick and choose,
Yes.
and myself included. Like,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
when I came out, I was doing everything they told me,
Yeah.
but it took me some time to connect with my first sponsor,
Yeah.
and then after a couple months, when it really wasn't working out with him, and nothing against him, it was,
Yep.
it just wasn't the right fit. It was like for 2 months, I pretty much had an idiot for a sponsor and had decided that I could sponsor myself by just doing my step work because I had learned how
Wow.
to do
Okay.
the
Yeah.
template and that, like
Yeah.
here we go. Milan knows everything again, right?
Yeah.
Like, and anybody out there, just don't be the same idiot as me
No.
because it it really like all it did was kind of delay some of the benefits of
Mm.
my program.
Yeah.
And you look at the steps, and what I find is that every time I see somebody have a relapse, it makes me like checklist my program. I'm
Mm.
like, whoa, am
Yeah.
I strong in this? Like,
Yeah.
what am I weak on? And
Yeah.
so, getting the sponsor I have now,
Yeah.
I know that you can have, a Mr. Right now and then a Mr. Right for your
Yes.
sponsor. And it doesn't mean anything negative about the first one. I still think of so many of the things that he taught me on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
But for me to successfully complete an out of option set of steps, I don't know what would have happened with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like one of the things that got asked of me right away was on my step 4 to go and read that to a priest.
Oh
And
wow.
like, and I've said the problem I have with the Catholic religion. I'm like, last thing I'm fucking doing is going
Yeah.
and paying a priest $100. Like he's a pimp. Like, hey man, you want to come in my van for an hour, priest? Like,
Yeah.
like it was, it was
Uh,
just like I felt so awkward about that.
yeah.
But you know, I just think that it's like I finally am breaking down more and more on making sure that I'm just doing all the shit they say in the
Yeah.
program and that I'm
Yeah.
trying to practice all 12 steps. It's like recently I kind of brought meditation into the fold. For a long
Wow.
time, I classified my music playing as my meditation, and it definitely is a form of meditation and prayer
Mhm.
for me, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. But it's not something that I'm like really slowing down and taking stock inside
Yeah.
myself. And so, like when I skidded to my rock bottom and coming out of that hospital, there hasn't
Mm.
been a moment that I have not been scared to go back.
Yes. Okay.
I have never had a point where I'm like, maybe. Like I've
Yeah.
never had that moment. Like that moment is that, like it has. I've had 3 using dreams, and not
Yeah.
one moment of compulsion in 15
Wow.
months. And every time I had one of those using dreams, it ruined my whole day. Like I
Wow.
woke up and I was like almost a tear. I was like, "What happened, man? Like I really
Yeah.
didn't want this,
Yeah.
Like, and unfortunately too, in the using dreams, I didn't even get to use. I just knew that I used. I had like a bag of something in my hands, and I was
Yeah.
like trying to hide it from my family. Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. I'm like, like
Yeah.
unpack that, like how many
Yeah.
fucking times I fucking ran around hiding shit from people. And I don't have to anymore. And
Yeah.
and and that feels so good. So,
Yeah.
like I think I try to stay in a surrender. But
Yeah.
it's like it's not that I don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's like for me, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm powerless. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm unmet. Like
Yeah.
like I feel a manageability coming
Yeah.
back into my life.
Yeah.
Not a manageability over my addiction.
No.
Uh, but that powerlessness is never stopping. Like that,
Mm.
it proved to me in that 17 years of I got this and
Yeah.
not having it, and now I feel
Yeah.
firm in my powerlessness.
Mm.
And what about you, Jason?
Okay, what was it again? The question?
At what point during your recovery, you've hit 6 years, is it now? Is it six?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Was it something? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
in regards to just having to like not like fully resurrendering your own way,
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
okay, yeah, like, you know what, I'm doing recovery, it's working, but there's a point in your recovery you think to yourself, crap, you know what, like, I've done steps, but I need to fully surrender again. Like at a point, not to the point where you've like physically relapsed, but more so like, you know what, this is becoming unmanageable, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think you mentioned something about the first year.
yeah,
Because you're going to be coming up to it, right?
yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
then, I've seen a lot of people get to that year, right?
yep,
And somebody saw me get into that year, right? So the
yep,
suggestion was to me was, okay, okay, or when I had it, or a couple days
yep.
before, okay, when you get in the year, do 90 meetings in 90 days.
Oh wow,
And
okay.
I'm like, what are you saying? That's stupid. And then, but I caught myself, right?
Yeah,
Whenever would think something stupid and somebody gives me a suggestion,
yeah,
I'll just go ahead and do it and see what happens.
yeah, yeah,
So I did the 90 meetings in 90 days. And I've said that to a lot of people. I'll say that
yeah.
to you right now. Do 90 meetings in 90 days.
That's such a great
And you got your
suggestion. It
year.
really is.
And a lot of the
Yeah,
reaction was the same as mine. They're like,
yeah,
yeah, just do it because it's just another day.
yeah.
Not like some arbitrary like date on
Mm,
the calendar where all of a sudden you got this.
yeah,
and and your ego or my ego and all this and,
yeah.
bravado and everything can kick in. Doing 90 meetings in 90 days at a year clean killed that,
Wow. Yeah,
right?
that's
And
perfect to put it.
and it was just like recommit. And
Mm,
and then the second year, well, it was COVID, so that didn't happen. I did it in third year, maybe a bit in the fourth year. After the fifth year, I would say for the last, well, up until maybe a couple months ago, there was about 6, 7 months there
yeah.
where I didn't go to a lot of meetings, just kind of
Mm,
coasted along. I was kind of on the fence. A few people pissed me off and I kind of let it get to
yeah,
me, right? Started
yeah,
to form some resentments and like, do I really need to do this shit? I have
yeah,
5 years clean.
yeah,
I got this. I don't
yeah, yeah,
I don't see hardly anybody in these rooms with
yeah, yeah,
between 5 and 10 years clean.
yeah.
I don't need to be here, and then I kind of caught myself and I just kind of made the switch and I started going to that Monday night meeting
Yes.
and
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
hitting up some meetings that I don't normally go to. I made the Monday night my home group.
Best group ever, by the way.
Yeah,
Monday Night
I
and,
agree with
Beginners.
that.
so I'd say in the last couple of months,
Yep.
I've recommitted to
Yeah.
recovery. I got a sponsor in the last few weeks. He's coming over tomorrow night, and we're gonna go through the big book and do another set of steps.
Nice.
I
Nice.
haven't had a sponsor or done any steps in a year and a half,
Wow. Okay.
and just kind of coasting along. But
Yeah.
So next
coasting for me is really slowly going downhill. Like
next episode, complacency.
Yeah.
almost imperceptible.
Yeah.
So and it took like, it was just a decision. It takes like
Yep.
5 minutes to turn it around,
Yeah.
right? And maybe Milan thought, that I might have something going on, and he asked me to be on
Yeah.
the podcast. Which I'm really
Yep.
grateful for, right?
Yeah.
And so it can happen at any time.
Yep.
And the 5 year is kind of a big milestone, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't do the 90 meetings in 90 days. I probably should have,
Mm.
right?
Interesting.
But it's like it's something that definitely worked for me after the year.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
at that time when the COVID and the driver's license thing all came down, and I've been doing 90 meetings in 90 days, so I was connected, right?
Yeah.
I
that.
haven't really been connected in the last year.
Mm.
But I'm starting to reconnect,
Yeah.
and it's great.
One of my friends in my online meeting just celebrated his tenure, and he's doing 90
Oh, wow.
meetings in 90 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
It seems to be something that, just throws you back in the middle of your recovery. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like if you're being complacent, it's going to remind you every day that you
Exactly.
were.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you'll see a bunch of new people who've got that recovery fever, and that,
Yeah.
it might be fading somewhere inside there.
Yeah.
The recovery fever.
I like that.
I got recovery fever, man. I'm burning up.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Woo! Woo! Lordy!
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like having recovery fever. You know what? I like to talk about it. I like to
Yeah,
think about it. I find it endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
it
The
is.
only thing it does is make my life better to do more of that.
Exactly.
Like,
Mm.
there's not a shit side to it.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, no, there's not.
let's
There's
see.
no
I
downside.
really hate having a better relationship with my wife and daughter. That just it ruins my afternoon to think I'm going to go upstairs and get smiled at instead of sneered. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
from
I think
sneers to smiles.
that's right.
Mm.
From sneers to hugs.
Yeah.
Mm.
A lot of my questions have already kind of been covered in some of our conversation. So you said you had some more questions, though, AJ. Do you want to
Yeah.
ask Chris another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I have a few. I mean,
Go
I just
for it.
we made up five. Um, like, I'll just go down the list, I guess. Okay. Not number two. What strategies or tools have you found most helpful in maintaining your sobriety?
Oh, that's a really good one. For me, I always go back to step one. Like step one is been my foundation when it comes to sobriety for me and trying to live clean. Is that I know that the physical aspect of picking up and getting loaded is that physical relapse, right? So for me, I know for a fact, like you said earlier, like step one's a two-part. I know I'm powerless over my addiction. Has my life become unmanageable? And when my life has become unmanageable, I know for a fact that there's either an emotional setback for me, a spiritual setback, or a mental setback. And if one of them are off and I don't recognize it from the start, it goes down the line to the point where I'm either ringing up my sponsor saying, "Hey, I'm not doing well." And I learned that in my early recovery. I think it was like I was hitting uh my what is it 90 days, and 90 days was a big part for me because I was like, okay, I'm getting clean in 90 days, but for some reason I knew that I was spiritually blocked, emotionally blocked, and just like that mental blockage because I kept overthinking things. So I rang up my sponsor and I said, hey, I'm really struggling. And he was like, okay, has your life become unmanageable? And I said, it has. And then at that point, I started like looking at my life, um, and realized that either I wasn't being honest with myself, or I wasn't trusting the process, or I was isolating in a way where I wasn't sharing what I was really going through. Right? It's one of them things where for me, I went through that phase of like wearing so many different masks. I didn't want to bring that mask up of recovery. Like, I'm doing fine, I'm doing great. And then suddenly something happened where I had a reservation of something, then it came out, right? So that was the incident there for me where I knew you had to be connected in that way. I found the meetings helped. I found working the steps helped, and actually reaching out to my sponsor really helped a lot too. And even so too, um, just surrounding myself with people in recovery that had a lot of clean time. So one of the suggestions that Susie, the director at Options, said is it's all good and well you can hang out with people that are your treatment family, but you need to spend more time with people in the program, in the fellowship that has a lot of clean time. So I went to my first men's retreat in the summertime, and that was a big part, as well as I went to a my first convention in Burnaby, and I spent a lot of people time with that there for it. And that literally was that reignition I needed in my recovery, where I needed people that had a lot more clean time instead of hanging out with people that had like say 6 months to like a year clean on that. So just like diversifying my if you want to put my portfolio of mentors to see what was how they did it on that side. So yeah.
Awesome, Chris.
Yeah.
Awesome. Could you repeat the question, Jay?
Yeah, what he said. Okay. What strategies? What's what strategies or tools have you found most helpful in maintaining your sobriety?
Okay. Don't fuck with my program.
Yes,
Like,
I
no,
like
like,
that.
Yeah.
number
I
one,
like
like
that.
consistency.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, like, I don't think I've had 5 days in 15 months without a meeting.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and, like I've heard a lot of people who go to, a bunch of the meetings, they're like, I stay in the middle of the road, so I'm not going to
Mm,
fall off the edge. And
mm,
for me, it's just like, no matter how defeated I felt coming out of options and being a shortcoming, resentful jerk in 3 hours, I
mm.
didn't give up. And I didn't feel like using.
Yeah.
Like, like that was probably the first fight I ever had with my wife that I didn't feel like using. So,
Mm,
like in a retrospective thing, the fight was still a win for the change in my perspective. Like she won the fight, obviously, because like I was tail between the legs still, but
mm.
like in the reality of life, that change in mindset was a win. And, like I don't want to give this up for anything. And
Yeah.
so like if what like, this is the thing where I don't understand complacency sometimes. Like, I've had a fair number of friends relapse, and,
Mm.
and like man, I can smell a relapse coming by the smell of complacency. Like I'm just
Yep.
man, I
Yep.
could smell that complacency. And then they
Yep.
start saying, rejecting the program. I don't need to go to a meeting.
Mm,
I don't, like fuck that part of it, and
mm.
I haven't checked out it. And I'm just like, okay, well, I thought you liked being straight.
Yeah.
Like my response is literally like, I thought you were enjoying recovery. Well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, not doing all the stuff we're doing is basically just living and not using yet.
Mm, mm.
And for me, this is the only time I've been straight as an adult with serenity and joy in my life.
Yeah.
Like
Awesome.
seriously,
Yeah, me
I
too.
was not happy straight white knuckling it. All the
Mm.
times I white knuckled it, I was like just resentful and like kind of fantasizically living in tomorrow of the next time
Yeah.
that I would fall off the wagon.
Mm.
Whereas now, like that's gone. That part of my brain just gets to be here now and kind of accomplish like, I feel like I was really given a second chance coming back from where I thought I
Mm.
was gonna die. And, you know, I'm doing I'm breaking all my dream records,
Yeah.
like in songs recorded, in starting this podcast, in
Yep.
in in just in having a family that, feels loved and
Mm.
sees me there, and having a mom, who's got cancer and I'm making her laugh every day and
Mm.
I'm right there
That's
doing it, and so yeah, like for me, I was trying to think when you first asked Chris. I love that you asked Chris first because it gives me a
yeah.
second to think about it. but but the thing is that it's like sticking to the program, following the suggestions that they said.
Mm.
Those are the tools for me, And I would say on top of that is actually doing like a moral inventory regularly.
Yeah.
Like I'm still making mountains of mistakes, but I am, it's barely ever more than an hour and a half to 2 hours before I'm
Mm.
back apologizing for something I've done. And that
Yeah.
was never the case in the past. And it's just also showing me that it's okay to be wrong, but it's even better to grow. Like
Yeah.
that feeling of going back and genuinely being sorry and acknowledging really what it was that I did, not some diluted version, means a lot to me, you know? Okay, Jason, you're up on your question.
Okay. Well, when I said um, earlier this last year I wasn't going to a lot of meetings, I've
Yeah.
always been consistent. When I wasn't going to a lot of meetings, that means 2 a week, right?
Mm.
Because I used to go every day, just just because I enjoyed it and it's something to do. It just gets me out of the house, right?
Mm.
But I'm still only going to, uh, like a couple of meetings a week.
Yeah.
But they're a lot more meaningful now than just going to a meeting just to go to a meeting to get out of the house. Um, but there's a lot of other things outside of recovery that are recovery that I do for my recovery, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Like
Yeah.
service things, you mean?
Not really so much like service, but I go to yoga. I go to yoga like all the time. And I
But I would call that part of a program, like the physical, food, sleep, all of that.
Yeah. Eat good food. Stopped
Yeah.
smoking a couple of years ago.
9.5 months. Right
Yeah.
Hey.
You know, like, and go to the gym every day. Go to the yoga. You know, like read. You know, like watch movies, listen to a lot of music. You know, like work. You know, I just found that I have to have like a healthy balance of everything, and that's what works for me. And if it gets out of balance, I can recognize it pretty quick. But then it's up to me if I'm going to do something about it, right?
Yep.
That's about it.
Nice. And Chris, do you got another question you want to ask me?
Yeah. What do I have here? Where did I put some- So how does so being a newcomer, you know, like what sort of support that you needed from your family and from the fellowship that you found that you needed in your first your first year of recovery, right? Because you know it's good that we for me, like my family, my direct family's back over in Australia, so having the support of the fellowship for one, and certain people in the community has been a big thing for me, right? But when you went through your first year, what was the support that you found you needed to help your recovery sort of progress from the fellowship and from the family aspect?
So I really needed the brotherhood and
Yep.
sisterhood, the people that I went to treatment with.
Yep.
Like coming out, I had nobody really, maybe one or two friends that I could even communicate with, and the rest
Yep.
were all party associates.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and I wasn't really willing to go back into the lion's den to hang out with them.
Yep.
Like, they say
Yeah.
you go to the barber shop, you get the haircut.
Yep.
And so, um, yeah, like but
Yep.
also too, partying is not a spectator sport for me. Like, I just don't care how much you love me. Like, that's all right. I
Yeah.
know you love
Yeah.
me. I know you
Yeah.
love me. And I know that I was the same guy, but
Yeah.
I'm not now.
Yeah.
But coming out, I had friends like Andre and Gabriel, like
Yep.
Gabriel especially. I
Yeah.
literally we formed what we called calibration brothers.
Yes. You mentioned that.
And
I remember you saying
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and so like we went from like our deluded perceptions of reality to now having someone else external to us that we could call up, and it would be a question.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the situation. Am I fucked, or is this correct? And it
Yeah.
was like, oh no, that's good, or no, don't ever think about doing that. Like, don't,
Yeah.
like, dude, what are you
Yes.
thinking? And
Yeah.
like, and it took that for a while. Like, even geez, man, him and I just had like a call this morning. Like, and that's been a real integral part of my support network.
Yeah.
And then the rooms, like, I wish I lived up by Kelowna because there
Yeah.
just isn't the in-person thing here. So,
Yeah.
like I make the commute to go up there to have some real in-person
Yeah.
hugs, laughs, and
Nice.
everything. And that's been, like, I thought before, I'm like, oh, okay, I could just do this all online. I could save
Yeah.
myself a day of traveling, and it's just not the same. I
Uh,
need some in-person real
yeah.
community, and
Yeah.
then the online community. Like, anybody who says that you can't get a good recovery online it has lost the open-mindedness of their recovery,
Mm,
because
that's a good
there
point.
is
Yeah.
fabulous meetings. Like, I know, like, even some of the old timers who've come on this podcast, and they're like, I was not going to ever do this online shit
Mm,
when COVID came about. Like, some
yeah.
of them have been doing 25 years of in-person meetings, and
Yeah.
then boom, tell them to go on and click here, and they're
Yeah.
all fighting their camera, and like, they don't. No, like, I mean,
I can't
like,
get the background.
yeah, exactly. Here we are.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they realized that it
Yeah.
was a necessary part of the evolution of recovery.
Nice. Yeah.
And even even having people talk in groups like this on this
Yep.
podcast, this
Yep.
is an evolution
Yeah.
of recovery for somebody who wants more
Mm,
information,
mm,
who might be like shaking it hard on the couch and
exactly.
can't even go on
Yep.
a meeting because they don't
Yep.
even want to put their camera on, and they don't, like they don't
Yep.
want to be called a bomber and kicked off it. Like, someone's going to lie down and they're going to at least get a glimpse about recovery,
Yeah.
which is why,
Definitely.
most of the terminology, even if it's been said on another episode, I get people to explain, because you just never know when who's clicking on what.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
know, the support from my family, man, has been, endless,
Yeah.
endless
Yep.
and needed, like,
Yep.
man, like, to be welcomed back in,
Yeah.
after it was, not so awesome when I left
Mm,
for options. Like, when I came back from dying, my wife and daughter just really didn't talk to me for the 2 weeks I was shaking it out on the couch before I
wow.
got there.
Yeah.
And, to have them, even while I was in options, come and visit me, and,
Yep.
that coldness get replaced by
Yeah.
indifference, by back to
Yep.
love. Like, but, you
Yep.
know, uh, it did take them kind of, I would say, maybe being a little gentler on me than
Yeah.
usual,
Okay.
because I feel like I came back so full of emotions that there was a lot of days I couldn't handle everything at once,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
uh, and that grace and patience with me.
Yeah.
But, you know, and even from my parents who live on the property, and Michelle's
Mm,
dad,
mm,
uh, uh, and really them showing me, a fine example of forgiveness for me to move
yeah.
into some forgiveness.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about you, Jason?
Um, yeah, that's kind of funny. The next question I have is kind of a follow up to that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, look
anyway,
at that.
you got to like the synergy here.
Yes, I
Yeah,
like it.
it's the magic,
Um,
man.
I'd say, well, the best thing that happened, or in my initial recovery, was being
Yeah.
able to chair that meeting. Right? It
Yeah.
was it
Okay.
was it was a Wednesday night NA meeting, like one of the meetings that options brought us to. It was downtown here. It doesn't exist anymore, but
You
Okay.
guys
Yeah.
used to go to meetings every day, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. and
yeah,
and and, I just had the opportunity, so I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
like I said before, that's how I got to know everybody, and that's what
Yeah.
what kind of it like cemented my decision to stay in
Yeah.
Kelowna, and I built a support group outside of options before I even left there, right?
Wow. Nice.
And
Yeah.
so everything was in place. Like I could have moved into my own place right away, but I chose to move in with a couple people from recovery, and
Yep.
just to sort of bridge the gap.
Yep.
And that was about 6 months, and then I got another place, and I
Yep.
went to Vancouver, and I got this motorcycle. I like to ride motorcycles, right?
Yep.
And at that time I had a Harley FXR, like one of the gangster bikes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I asked around. I asked people around, like, who in recovery has motorcycles? Usually a
Yep.
town's big enough that there's got to be a bunch of guys that ride bikes,
Yeah.
and there was, and I found out who it was. It was this guy Todd's, and I got his address, and I
Yeah.
rode over there, and they're all working on their bikes in the drive, and I just pulled right in.
Oh,
Hey,
love
dudes! And they're
it.
like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Right? And I explained myself, and I've been like great friends with Todd and a few other guys ever since, right?
Yep.
And so that's just kind of an example of
Mm.
taking recovery, right? And
Yep.
muscling my way into the middle, right? And
Yep.
and it's kind of like a skill set, that wasn't actually used for positive purposes in
Yep.
the past, right? If I went to a new town and I wanted drugs and I found out where
Yep.
the crack house was, I'll go knock on the door. It's
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
same thing,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
this is yielded much better results.
Yeah. Of
And
course.
much healthier
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like
Mm.
great friends today, and I still ride motorcycles and to try to convince
Nice.
people to ride motorcycles, and this and that, and
Mm.
whatever. So, there's a lot of, like the first similarity that we all have is that we're in recovery and we want better lives,
Yes.
right? And you know, and then you just build your
Mm.
people from there, right? However you want to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice.
And what about you, Cris?
For me, oh gosh, like for me, it was like I had to be honest with a lot of things, right? I think honesty was the biggest part for myself. The fact that I was in active addiction for such a long time, where my family didn't know how bad my addiction was. They didn't even know that I was an addict until, the week after, no, the week before coming into treatment. I told them, and then having to deal with that, but then having to deal with the social group of like, yes, I'm in recovery for one, and I had to I had to put up I had to pause on a lot of social friendships and like close friendships where I had to focus on myself for once. So that was a big part for me, as well as actually like my career, because for me it was family, career, and social groups or friendships that really I would throw myself into one or the other, like wholeheartedly without dealing with the issues I had. So for one, it was having to tell my my director at the time that I'm actually not coming back to work and I'm going to work on myself. And then he was good with that. And coming from that healthcare industry was a really hard thing for me to actually put myself first for once, right? So that was the part there. And really, like Jason said, I had to surround myself, like I surround myself with a lot of people in recovery, both at the treatment center when I go back there to visit, or more so to people in long-term recovery, where it's you know, you're saying that you go into the barber, you're going to get a haircut. So if I hang out with people that have like a strong foundation in recovery, like Adam would say, you got to stick with the winners. So I'm slowly doing that there now for it. So yeah, that's a big part. And like you said too, like when it comes to family, having their grace to give me the time to actually heal and work on it at times, because I came out of treatment. I'm thinking, yes, I've done 45 days. I'm in recovery, and then realize that, holy crap, I'm still like working the steps. I'm still having to deal with a lot of the wreckage of my past for one. So like, be graceful on that, and just like the humility side kicks in too, right? So yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome, Chris.
And you've got your follow-up question, Jay. You want to ask
yeah.
Cris?
Yeah, this is, yeah, you can just interpret it how you want, but how can I best support you in your recovery?
Oh wow. Okay, so it's funny. So what I really gravitate to, because I've come from a place like, especially like an industry back home in Australia where I grew up, where I was always aligning myself with people that was successful in life, but they never showed how hard it was to get successful in life, right?
Mm.
There was always that surface level relationship. You need to do this, this, and this to get to, to the next step, but they would never say I had to struggle with this, this, and this. So when I go to the rooms, I literally gravitate to people that say I'm having a bad day. I've got so many years clean, or I'm so many years sober, but I'm dealing with this in my life. And as a person that's in recovery, I have say 6 years clean, but this still comes up, and I'm still dealing with that defect, or I'm still dealing with that shortcoming in some sense, right? So I like the raw vulnerability of things when it comes to it. Instead of always painting it out to be like everything's good, work the steps, get connected, right? So it's the relatability of like dealing with life in life's terms, because I find that we are in a new way of life. Life hasn't changed. We've changed to adapt to the life that we've been given, right? But I like to hear the good and the bad, right? Like, how they say in a lot of the meetings, sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Your experience, I want to, like for me, I relate to people that are saying, you know what, I had a really shit week this week because this happened. The strength I found out from that is I did this, right? So having like both a mixture of, um, the fellowship, and I'm guessing what do you mean, like the program, like working a program, but applying it to everyday life, right? So that's the big part for me. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you repeat the question, Jason?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Thanks.
How can I best support you in your recovery?
Okay, well, I think two words: love and acceptance.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
just if you can bring love and acceptance to our relationship, that'll allow me to grow without feeling judged. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm really, really screwing up and hurting somebody unknowingly, I would also like to think like that you're a booger buddy. You know, if I got a booger in my nose, you're going to tell me. And if I got a
Exactly.
booger in my personality, I hope you'll
Yeah.
take me aside, not publicly, humiliate me, but, like one thing that I've really felt with a lot of my community inside recovery is a greater level of vulnerability that gets
Mm,
shared. I mean, just going and sharing like we do in the groups, right? Like,
mm,
and that is only possible for me with a feeling of love and a certain level of feeling of acceptance. Obviously, like, I could be a lot for people sometimes,
mm.
you know.
Mm.
Like, so can
No.
you, Jason. Like, oh yes, we're all big personalities here, and that's okay. Because like we spend our life specializing in our personalities with our
Yeah.
self-centeredness, right? But like it's true, like we definitely, even if you think you're the dirtiest dirt, that's pride. Just as much as thinking you're the best of the best.
Yeah.
Thinking that we were the very worst scum of whatever, so shameful, that's still pride.
Yeah.
And so, like all I like I could feel it. Like I could feel the vibe when I'm
Mm,
being loved and accepted and when I'm not.
yeah.
And it's really like I'm not saying that I need to be French kissed by every person in the room. That's not that kind of love. Like
Sure.
I'm just saying that I just want to feel a part of and
Mm,
accepted. And that's the best way that someone can support me. And also too, like if you're hearing of these men's retreats, I haven't
yeah.
even heard of them. Like I want to be
Yeah.
on the invite list for
Yes.
some things like that well in advance so that I can actually make it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's my answer. And what about you, Jason?
Um, how can I best support you? I know. I guess that could be answered a couple ways, right?
Yeah.
Well, like how can we best support you?
But
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Go that way, or how can I support you? Um, I don't know. Like at this point, like, um, like I've had several sponsees in the past, and
Mm,
I think I might have a few right now, right? And I don't know. Like a lot of these guys just struggle,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And lie and fuck around and this and that, but but I'll listen, and if somebody calls me like 6 months out of the blue, it's like I talked to them yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And I don't judge and say I told you so or any of this shit, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it has gotten to the point where people know that they can call me.
Yeah.
They know I'm going to answer the phone. They know that I'm clean and sober,
Mm,
and they know that I will listen to a
Isn't
point.
that cool?
yeah.
Like, isn't that such
Yeah,
a
Love that.
switch in your life?
so I can help you by answering the phone.
Old
You know,
dependable Jay, they'll call you now.
That's it.
yeah, which is like odd.
Mm, love it.
And
Yeah.
I guess I should go to my family, like my mom and my dad and stuff like that. Like they've seen everything.
Yeah.
They've watched this shit show for like the last 30 years, and
Yeah.
used to say sorry about everything, and sorry
Mm,
this, sorry that. Sorry always meant I would do it again,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Talk is cheap from us,
Yeah.
yeah,
man.
it
Yeah.
is. It is. So I stopped talking and I just live in amends.
Mm,
And we're really close. We have been for a long time, but I keep my recovery separate from the relationship with my parents.
okay. Yeah.
Right? I just do. And I'll talk to them about certain things, but they can just tell by the tone of my voice what's going
Nice.
on, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they haven't been worried in 6 years.
Mm.
They just haven't, and that's yeah. I mean, that's really all I have to say about that. And like I did tell my mom, oh, we're doing this podcast tomorrow, and it's going to be really cool. And we talked about what questions
Yeah.
I might want to ask, right?
Yeah.
We probably give people in recovery and new people and people that aren't in recovery.
We
Yeah.
love you, moms.
Yes, we
some
do. Definitely love
insights,
mums.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was kind of a cool collaboration.
Nice. Yeah.
I think my mom's getting to know me through this podcast.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
You know,
Nice. Yeah,
like I
yeah.
think that there's a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't bring up in conversation to her that she hears here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
know, yeah.
and that's okay.
That's one of the things, because I want to see the podcast, and I think, well, it's not live, but I could send it to you after it's uploaded.
Yeah.
Mm.
I love it.
Yeah, it'll be
like
active. It'll be
50
active by
about
about 9 a.m. tomorrow because
Oh,
Perfect.
I have like I
okay.
could do one every 24 hours. One came out this morning, so it'll be
Nice.
tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool how consistent you are with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
recovery
Definitely.
and life.
Yeah.
That's kind of the key to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, and having conversations like these, all
Yeah.
they do is make me explore like the whole thing even more.
Yeah.
Every
Them
time I
layers
hear
gotta get.
someone
Yeah.
else's opinion, you
Yeah.
know, that and like I find that I'm learning a lot, you know, and even just learning about myself, like getting asked a question means I have to think about that answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I love it.
I love it. And I love to be a question comer upper with her, except
Mm.
when all my questions kind of get answered inside a great conversation at the start. And then I'm
Yeah. I
like, well,
love it.
good thing these guys got them.
Yeah.
You got another question on you, Chris?
I don't know. I think like similar to you, I had a few good ones that stood out on that side, but most of my questions were answered so far. So yeah. What about
Jason, you
yourself?
got another
Yeah.
one on your list?
Yeah, I have two more.
Jason's the
that I think-
question
Yeah, I
maker,
know. He's a
bringing the
question
rain.
answer. I love it.
Woo!
Question
Yeah.
makers make it.
Question comer upper withers.
Yeah.
They last.
Yeah, I have two more that I think will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
going to
great.
switch them around here. Okay, here we go. Are there any triggers or situations that you find particularly difficult to navigate?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So for me, like I was saying earlier, like when I was in my active addiction in Kelowna for like, heavy in the past 6 years, but like on and off for the first 4 years being in Canada, um, I still find myself powerless, and it's funny how the literature says it, right? Like being powerless over people, places, and things. That is completely me. I had an opportunity to do treatment elsewhere, but for some reason I said, you know what? I actually so the gentleman that took me to my first NA meeting, he did treatment at Salmon Arms Options before they shut down.
Mm.
And so he planted that seed in me, and I knew straight away that, well, if it worked for him, and he's now got like two beautiful kids, a wife, and like a great life, um, it must have worked for him. So for me, like, um, you know, actually dealing with the wreckage of my past and being in Kelowna and being and seeing people, places or things, it does trigger things sometimes. And I know when it does trigger something, or if my higher power puts me in a situation where I'm feeling uneasy, and I know it's uneasy, I need to really like be inquisitive with it and start looking into it deeper, and then reach out to my sponsor now. Either reach out or I've joined a basic text study group, and us guys, we get together once a week and we talk, like we read the book, a chapter out of the book, and then we talk about it and we bring a lot of stuff that we're dealing with that week into it, right? So, with that there, that's been a big help. What I've learned in the meeting rooms is outside help, right? So seeing either psychiatry, or like doing some like outside treatment that isn't related to the program has been a big one. So counseling or like therapy. So I've started doing that as well too, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me it's really about the mental health, and not to be so like reactive in a situation when it does trigger me, for one, right? Like, yeah, like that's a big part, the triggers of you know, the old Chris to where the new Chris is. I know my surroundings are still always going to be the same. It's just how I react in that sense. So yeah, that's a good question. I like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Could you
Okay.
repeat your question, Master Question Jay?
It was a collaboration. I have to give my mother credit.
I'm saying I love Mom.
These are things
Love
she
you,
wants
Mom.
to know.
Yeah.
This one goes
Okay.
out to Jay's mom. We love you.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yeah.
good. She's going to be watching it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any triggers or situations that you find particularly difficult to navigate?
So, see, I have just kept myself out of the barbershop.
Mm,
Like, fortunately for me, my DOC, like,
yeah.
people aren't really doing out, in a restaurant on the
Yeah.
table or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that has kept me out of that lion's den. I'm not sure, like, so the one time I came face to face with it though in my recovery, when I had my event down in Vancouver, when I was
Mm,
in the hospital, they called my wife. My wife was flying in to drive my truck home, and they
mm.
packed my bags. Well, I went to go use my computer for work, and inside I found the vessel and was like
Uh,
chock a block full. And I
wow.
was like, I unscrewed the lid and it started like spilling all over the fucking place. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? And I was so broke. I was like, and I had never sold this ever in my life. And I was like, oh, I'm going to sell it to one of my friends.
Yeah.
And then it was
Yeah.
like, I called the guy and he was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I'm like, discount rates. I'm like, you get the vessel and everything, like,
The best
I
one ever.
and then he was working a lot. We didn't connect. And then I realized like, I don't even believe in this anymore. And so what I did was, um, it was like, I'd say probably actually about 10 days after I found it, and it was garbage day. So it
Yeah.
was like, I knew the garbage truck was coming in half an hour. I threw it in the bag. I tied the
Oh,
bag.
wow.
I took it out and it was gone.
Mm,
And that was it. But even then I didn't feel like using it, but I was like, holy shit, if my wife finds this, she's going to think I'm lying.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
I got Susie to give my wife a piss test because I was like, I'm like, I can't wait, man. I'm like, you piss, and I'm like, as anytime I seem crazy or we're not getting along, I'm like, you can
Yeah.
piss test me. And I'm pissing clean, baby. I'm like, come on, bring on the piss test, bring on the piss test. And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, but she's never done it, and obviously because I haven't looked like I thought I was like master of deception, and then
Yeah.
I look at these pictures and I'm like, who did you
Oh,
think you were
yes.
kidding? Mr.
Mm.
Elephant Face? Like,
Uh,
oh.
yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, I love it.
man, like it's funny that there's probably going to be a good decade of pictures that I
Mm,
probably really won't be able to look back on my face very well,
mm.
inside all those pictures. But, you know, but the one thing that, I do is I surround myself with recovery all the
Mm,
time. And, my wife loves me being straight so much that when people are coming over, she's like, you're not bringing booze to our house or whatever. Like she
yeah.
doesn't, she doesn't
Yeah.
care. She'd rather have less people on me straight. And,
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
um, so yeah, hardest thing I would say is watching a movie like Yellowstone when Beth smokes a cigarette. Man, I want a
Wow.
cigarette when she's smoking a cigarette. Who's kidding
Yeah.
you?
Well,
She makes a
really.
cigarette look good.
He
Yeah.
lives good smoking cigarettes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, and
If
I'm
he
like,
didn't, it wouldn't
that's
be right.
that is like a
Yeah.
trigger though, and the best thing about that is though is I'm watching that in my bed, and there's no cigarettes in my house, and
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Mm, nice.
And what about you, Jay?
um, I would say still to this day, if I go to Vancouver, my
Wow.
parents
Okay.
live in
Yeah.
Vancouver, so I go visit them, right? And
Mm,
still, I just go straight to their house,
Yeah.
and I'll hang out with them, and we'll go out for dinner, and we'll go do whatever, but I don't do anything else.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
Like I don't go to meetings down there. I don't like driving around because everywhere is a
Is it trigger?
yeah,
Wow.
like
Okay.
every fucking freeway exit is a trigger.
Yeah.
And like every Starbucks and every street and every like there's so many
Yeah.
there's so many uh just so many triggers there, right?
Yeah.
Still and they're still strong, right? Oh, I got
Wow.
loaded there, this is where I used to go, like
Yeah.
and it's everywhere because I got loaded there for 25 years,
Wow. Yeah.
and so and when I come up here, there aren't those kind of triggers
Mm.
like at all, and it's not like I can go into a restaurant, it's fine, I don't go to
Mm.
nightclubs or bars or anything like that,
Mm.
but I can go to a pub for lunch and have a burger or restaurants. I don't get triggered in those situations. It
No.
seems to be like where I've been, like where I've gotten loaded in the past.
Yeah.
Like like went to Mexico a few times in the last couple of years, and Mexico City a couple times because I like big cities, right? And there's a lot going on. There's
Mm.
no triggers there in Cancun or Tulum or any of those places.
Mm.
There's a lot
Wow.
of partying, but it doesn't trigger me. Like
Mm.
like went to Europe a couple times. Like for some like Madrid, Rome, and Barcelona and this and that, and
Yeah.
by myself, like
Mm.
only like a year. Like first time was a year clean, and
Mm.
that was great. And no triggers at all, right? It seems to be only where I've gotten loaded before, right? So
Mm.
Vancouver is really difficult. Like I like cities. I like my feet on pavement. That's how I grew up. But there's no
Mm.
way that I could live there. So I got
Mm.
to settle for downtown Kelowna, which is fine.
It's
Love it.
kind of really one of the
Yeah.
most beautiful cities Canada has
Yeah,
to
it's
offer.
awesome. It's
Like, I
awesome.
mean,
Yeah.
you're settling down. Like, it's not like we're saying go to Sudbury.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like downtown Kelowna because it's kind of has a cityish feel to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can walk
Interesting.
everywhere. It's great.
Yeah.
it's as
Yeah.
city as you get in the Okanagan.
Yeah,
It
this
is.
is
Yes.
and I like it. I enjoy it.
Mm.
I think it's gorgeous. I actually never really spent much time there until I went to treatment, and you know, I could see myself living up in Kelowna at some point, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you know
Yep.
what? I say the same thing. I say that during my active addiction, I didn't see how beautiful the city is and how Kelowna is. And then the more that like I work recovery and stay in recovery, there's just days where I'll be driving across the bridge and I think to myself, I'm so fucking lucky to live here, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing there for it. Yeah.
You know, I think that we're three proponents that are pro options, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would,
Yeah.
I would like to say anybody. Well, I thought I was going to jail. I thought I was
Yes.
going to jail for when I was going into treatment. I had no clue. I thought I
Yeah.
was going to hang out with the guy who lives under the bridge, who's collecting
Hmm.
cans or whatever. Like, I had a really
Exactly.
bad opinion about who I was going to meet there and what it was going to be like. And I
Yeah.
just want to say that, my experience in options was transformative, changed my
Yeah.
life. I'm alive because of it. I not only is I'm happily alive because of it.
Mm.
You know
Yeah.
what would you say about your experience there, Jay?
Well, it was definitely a platform to reboot my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
would you recommend to somebody who's afraid of treatment to go if they've got the
Oh yeah,
opportunity?
anybody that asks me, and I get asked quite often, like, where's
Yeah.
everybody in the Okanagan?
Yep.
And I go, well, I would go to options.
Yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
I know
Mm.
what's going on there. Actually, I have one more question that
Yeah, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
do it. I got a few more minutes. You, Chris?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go for it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm great,
think I
mate. I'm
think
good.
like we'll kind of save the best for last here.
Yes.
Okay, I like it.
Love
Best
it.
for
Love
last.
it.
I
Woo!
think this is an appropriate final question.
We'll
Yeah.
call this the Sizzler.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. This was number 4, but I bumped it to number 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Sizzler. You ready for the Sizzler? Okay,
for
what
it.
are some of yeah?
Yeah.
What are some of your goals for the future, both short term and long term?
Okay, that's a really good question. I think for me, my short term is just to stick in recovery, right? Like, just like just for today. Like, I lost sight of that for a little bit. But for me, my short term goal is to be comfortable in my recovery, right? I'm hitting 7 months next week,
Yeah.
but I'm still peeling off layers of myself where I'm really uncomfortable with, right?
Mhm.
And not uncomfortable in a bad way, but uncomfortable in a way where I'm like, you know what, I need to look at this a little bit more and why it's affecting me. Probably because I've worn so many different masks in a long time. I'm trying to get back to who I really am and that authentic version of me that I'm like, yeah, that is me, right? I think for such a long time in my addiction, here and back home in Australia, like I wore so many different masks. So trying to sift that through to find out who I am and where I'm comfortable with on that. And you know what? And it's mine is to laugh a lot more. Like I forgot how to laugh in addiction, right? That is the biggest part. And to laugh now at the silly the silliest things with myself is a big thing for me. That's my short term goal. Long term goal is like Milan said, like I can't thank enough for what options has given me and what they say we can only keep what we have by giving it away, right? Like that is the biggest part for me. For me, it's like I've worked in healthcare for like 5 years in the past, and it's always giving back in a certain sense, but giving back where it's fulfilling for me, right? Like sponsorship, like so for me to sponsor someone and actually see them go through their first set of steps and
Mhm.
like take their first 1 year cake and seeing them get their sponsee, I think that would be a long term goal for me on that one there. So seeing the full circle happen, right? That would
Mhm.
be great. So yeah. Yeah,
Awesome. I
yeah,
like it.
yeah.
Question
John?
repeat. I think I know it, but I just really like to hear it again.
Well, well,
Yeah.
well,
It's kind of my pattern. I get
Yeah.
all
well,
involved. I'm
well,
like living Chris's dreams there. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
well, we
Yeah.
should repeat it a few times anyway for
Yeah.
Yeah.
anybody watching us, right?
Yeah.
What are some of your goals for the future, both short term and long term?
Okay, I'll start short term. Short term that I continue working on my relationships with my family.
Mm.
That I continue to make amends, living and direct.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that I may not encounter that I
Mm.
might owe some amends to still. And I can feel that little achy sickness inside me when I think about some of them. You know, just that, oh, like that feeling right here. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I was
Yeah.
bad. I was bad.
Yeah.
Um, and I want that, you know, I want to be able to, you know, be not just living clean, but
Mm.
free. And
Yes.
um, I want short term, and this is a short term, long term, is I want to stick to the program I'm on right now.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I've got a fabulous sponsor. I've got 5 sponsees. Like I'm chock a block full
Wow.
of action. And just had my first sponsee finish a set of steps ever.
Mm.
So
Nice.
that was amazing feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to continue building up my physical health. That is
Mm.
a short and a long term goal there. Um, this podcast is just getting going.
Mm.
So, you know, I'm really, really enjoying the experience of it.
Mm.
I never ever saw myself as a host for something like this,
Mm.
but
That's
the
cool.
That's
experience
awesome. Yeah.
is so satisfying to my soul. Like, you know,
Mm.
I've said this before, but I'm saying it again. Like one of my favorite things about this is, you know, if I have you guys back on, don't pick a topic that you're good
Mm.
at. Pick a topic that you might be struggling with because the
Yes. I like
healing
that.
that can occur right while we're doing the
Mm.
podcast, it's like it's magical. It's like something about exploring it in a
Mm.
forum with other people that, you know, I've really seen some friends be like, hey man, that, you know, that was what I needed today to
Yeah.
push me in that direction with my wife or my kids or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, One of my biggest goals right now is to maintain taking care of, my parents that are all here. My parents are here, my wife's dad's here, and
Mm,
just making sure that, they have the very best last years that they can with
mm,
me here, knowing that I'm clean and here to take the torch of the family once they go, and for them to feel, to see that, that things have changed, keeping on that immense. And then, long term, I I see eventually sort of being involved with some sort of counseling or treatment center eventually. And,
nice.
like if my property was zoned, I would have already started construction
Building.
on one right
Nice.
here.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm enthralled with the process. I want to help people,
Mm,
and it probably won't be able to happen here because of the zoning. We're in the ALR, and that just never would happen. But it is something that I see in my future. In that, I think. I think for me, there was two things that stopped me, from, like, first of all, a misidentification of what addiction was.
yes.
Uh, and and like I grew up in Southern Ontario. Like I did not know a sober person until my late 30s. No, like I'm
Wow.
not kidding. And so it's
Mm,
like I had no idea that there was happy sobriety or
mm,
any kind of sobriety at all. And I didn't know when I had crossed the line into being an addict.
mm,
Like because I didn't get up in the morning and drink,
mm,
like I just had like the other kind, where I didn't need it every morning, but when I went, boy, oh boy, I went. So I think like for myself, it's continuing on this path and wanting to just, amplify all the things. And also too, well, I almost forgot music. Like, hold on a
yeah.
second here. I would like to continue to write a minimum of
Yeah.
365 songs a year and record
Wow.
them.
That's
Well,
awesome.
because I did 1,128 last year. So
Wow.
That's
so
super cool.
I've decided now, though, that in an effort to bring more balance in my life, that I'm just going to work for one a day. And that
One a
seems
day.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like
because
that.
this is taking up more time, and I just want to make sure that I have time to be doing the exercise and the routines that keep me straight. The
Yeah.
meetings and the dog walking. And you, Jason?
Okay, I would say a short-term goal is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like in the
More
last month,
podcasts?
I like, okay, I'm gonna kind of recommit to recovery, change it up a bit,
Nice.
get a sponsor that I actually like, and do a set of AA steps because I haven't done them before.
Oh wow. Okay.
I've done a few sets of the NA steps, but I haven't really gone through the AA book,
Yeah.
right? So I just kind of chose one program, and instead of mixing it up like I have been,
Mm.
or
Have you
or
read the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book?
oh yeah, but
Okay.
not in years, right? And kind of just on my own time, right?
Yeah.
Well, and not in relation with steps while you do them. Like that's a
Yeah,
real,
yeah, no,
yeah.
just for
Mm.
just so I can say that I read it, right?
That
But
book is the finest piece of literature in
Mm.
yeah,
recovery, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, like I have all the books and I have a big book, but I bought a fresh
Yeah.
one recently,
Nice.
like fresh,
Nice.
brand new book, for this purpose, right?
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
large
And
print one,
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
the old man one.
Yeah.
love
And I
it.
have I have a sponsor, a guy I've known for years actually. And
Nice.
he just took 10 years in
Oh wow.
AA. And there's a lot of similarities between us.
Mm.
Like past similarities. And he's gonna come to my house tomorrow night
Nice.
and we're gonna get into it, right? Um,
Nice.
and I'm very grateful that Milan asked me to be on this podcast. Like
I love you, brother. Like every time we've chatted,
thank you.
it's been
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And that's really the only short-term goal that I need right now. Like everything else is pretty much in place, but there is
Nice.
sort of a longer-term goal. I would like to change careers, start doing something different.
Yeah.
That's not so physical, not so technical, actually,
Yeah.
'cause I'm not
Mm.
getting any younger. And
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time before I get injured. I haven't had a scratch in 20 years, and it's time to get out. And like the money isn't there anymore, and it's just it's weird to be thinking about a career change at my age. I'm going to be 54 next month. I have no idea how that happened.
Yeah, it happened. You know what? That's one thing I would say about Canada. I've had probably 3 different career changes, and it's been one of them things. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's been one of these things where I will fully
Oh, he's gone. He just hung himself up. Maybe he'll jump back in.
Oh wow, I'm sure he'll.
Anyway, go on with your long-term goals.
But anyway, longer term one. Well, the longer term is a career change. But I was painting for a while. I haven't painted anything in, I don't know, probably about a year. It just it's kind of gone out of it. So but I have been writing. There he is. He's back.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. I got a phone call and I thought I'd just turned it off. But yeah, so like I was saying in regards.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, for the career changes, I've had 3 big career changes in Canada, and I think Canada is that special place that you can do it because people support you, or they really do, and it's I think if you're passionate about doing a career change, depending on the career that you're going into, it's like you'll find people that will actually support you in that field enough to like support you along the way and give you the guidance on that. So yeah, like. I'm turning 38 this year, and I'm looking at doing another career change in the near future, right? So yeah, it is possible. So
what do you do now, Chris?
So I was currently working in healthcare. So my story, my background is I went from being a mechanic back home in Australia to a fixed operations manager here at the Big White, to mechanics and into healthcare. And I've not had a healthcare degree or anything like that. So the only thing I left was a year 12 certificate with my apprenticeship behind me on that side. And the rest has just been just hard work and just really like committing to something that if I did feel passionate about, I would do it. So yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And what do you do, Jason?
I own a building maintenance business.
Nice. Like strata buildings?
Like basically whatever I can do, right?
Okay.
And it has I've been doing it since 2007. And I don't know, it's just I could move back to Vancouver and West Van and this and that and probably make tons of money, but I made that mistake in the past and got loaded. So like
I'd rather you just stay in the Monday night beginners crew.
I'll figure something else out, right?
What is it? Stay in the middle?
Yeah. But one of my long-term goals is to write, maybe write a book or something. Right?
Oh, nice.
And which would be, I don't. I have a lot of stories.
I know
that I can piece together. I have outlined it. I came up with a pseudonym because there's no fucking way I'm putting this out in my own name.
Oh, nice.
Like a very legit sounding pseudonym. I don't know,
Space and Gents.
Yeah.
Space and Gents.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But it's just it's really what it comes down to is something that keeps me engaged, right?
Yeah.
And and to create new relationships within recovery, which we're doing right now. The ongoing relationship with my family and my parents.
Nice.
I have had a couple girlfriends in the last 6 years. So I don't know. That's like a whole other topic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
We could have an episode on love and recovery.
Yeah. Well, I got out of one.
You were with a girl at your 5-year when I first met you.
Yeah.
And
that's, I don't know. That ended a couple months ago, actually.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And
you're still sober, so that's good.
Yeah.
It shows that you have coping skills now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it's not my last rodeo. You know,
Nice.
I would like one to be the last one day, and I think that also has something to do with a different career. You know,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I would rather have more stability
Mm.
before I got
Yeah.
Of course.
before I get into anything, you know.
I
But anyway, whatever. And
I don't think you
another,
get to plan romantic timing in life. Okay, like
yeah,
No.
I was
Yeah.
always like, yeah, I'd like to have this and be like that, and that's when that's gonna happen. Then
Yep.
it's like, oh, boom, I'm in love. Here we go.
yeah, and it's not something that I like seek,
Uh,
right? It
Yep.
just it just kind of happens. Like I'm not in my 30s where I was just relentless about
Yeah.
it. Like like things. I just kind of let things happen, right?
Yeah.
But another goal, like I have done some traveling, and
Mm.
most of the time I travel by myself, and it's kind of a spiritual journey, and they're planned out
Yep.
and they're for my own reasons. And I think the next one it'll probably be this year sometime,
Yep.
maybe towards Christmas. I really like to go to India.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Start in Delhi and end in Mumbai.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of have it mapped out, like North India and all these different places to go, and it's always fascinated me. And
Go and do some yoga.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And like it's very introspective, and yeah,
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
I'm really grateful that you guys came on today. I feel like
No,
we were a
appreciate it.
good mix.
Yeah.
I would love to have you guys back on if you want to, think of some topics that, apparently you and your mom are great at questions, Jason.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, you have to give her some credit.
But I also liked your questions, even though you had less, Chris. But I thought this was great. I thought it was fun today.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have our own impromptu Options alumni meeting here.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Bring my
Yeah.
computer to you so we can figure out the background, because I really feel like the
Yeah, no, well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Bring that on Monday night. So tune in next time, everybody, for more recovery fun. See you later, everybody.
Hey guys.
Okay.
Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.